Hey Ben, you done with P5 yet? You still playing it?
Yeah, I'm still playing Persona 5. How about you?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk? Do you want to talk about how much we hate David Cage?
Yeah, that sounds really good. Yeah.
Okay, cool. This is The Gorge. This is a podcast where my friend Sara and I gorge ourselves on overanalyzing a game or game-related topic. This week, we're going to talk about David Cage and the importance of narrative in video games. Which is my least favorite Harry Potter book.
The Harry Potter book that's 95% QuickTime events.
Yeah.
But nothing changes even if you do them wrong. It's just the same thing fucking happens even if you get them right. It just starts looking more like a goofy Three Stooges movie instead of like an actual serious thing, you know?
Yeah, instead of anything important happening, it's all just the same, but not different enough to matter.
But way dumber looking. Because as you know, Ben, game overs are a failure of the game designer.
Yeah, game overs are a failure of the game designer. And it's...
Yeah.
So, David Cage...
Sucks?
David Cage makes video games.
Are you sure?
I mean, you can buy them at a video game store, and you play them on a video game console. I don't think David Cage makes video games. I think David Cage makes, 10-hour-long jerk-off fests. Yeah, that's another word for him.
Yeah, it's pretty much where he just kind of, rubs his dick on a computer for a while and says, yes, I have made the bad game. And then people fucking buy him. I think that's the most baffling part.
So, that was kind of so I took a few notes.
Oh, I'm excited.
Not a ton, but enough to get my point across.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll start with just an overall general thing. We can kind of jump into specific examples in his games as we go, because it's kind of hard to organize this in in order. But people, you said people buy his stuff, and I think the reason for that is the same reason that Titanic was one of the highest grossing films of all time. Because David Cage wants to be artistic, but has no concept of what artistic actually means. And if you strip away the production, value that goes into his games, there's nothing there.
No, they are all style, and the style isn't very good. And even less substance. I mean, non-existent. If you could have negative substance, you will have reached the David Cage standard for video game creation. And really, it's mediocre style, negligible, negative substance. That's what David Cage is. So I can't even say, all style, no substance. I mean, he's just garbage. I can't... I think Diva.
So one of the things I wanted to bring up first is that you can't deny that from at the time these games are visually impressive for what they did at the time. That's undeniable for PS3 quality, the way that Beyond Two Souls looks, and if you're going to compliment Hideo Kojima for digitally implanting Norman Reedus into a video game, you also have to give props to David Cage for doing the same for Ellen Page and Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
But
I would rather have my hand fed into a meat grinder than give David Cage any kind of props. Even if he does do things right, hand and meat grinder, leg and bear trap is about the level of pain you'd have to inflict on me before I was David Cage did a good job with anything. You know what I mean? Just because he's just such a hack, to even... I can't even think of like a good comparison. Who makes bad movies that look pretty? I guess Nicholas Winding Refn, the guy who did Drive, which is a good movie, but like every movie he did after that, it's just kind of like, eh.
Michael Bay.
Michael Bay, sure. Michael Bay. Ugh.
No, actually, I had a comparison, but no, that's not fair, because I was going to say David Cage is the Tommy Wiseau of video games. But that's not fair, because Tommy Wiseau poured his heart and soul into his production. That man tried his hardest.
Well,
it's just that he was incompetent and stupid.
It's because he's an alien, okay? That's all it is that Tommy Wiseau is an alien. He doesn't know what he's doing just because he's never lived as an Earthman before.
But what I was going to say is that even if these games are visually impressive, like, around the same time that Heavy Rain came out, there was another game that came out that had the same approach. There's a little game, maybe you've heard of it. It's called L.A. Noire.
Oh, yeah.
So you had in Heavy Rain, you had photorealistic...
that's a real indie title right there.
You had photorealistic people in, like, Heavy Rain, right?
Right.
And and you also had the same, like, kind of approach. Like, the selling point for L.A. Noire was, look at our super detailed faces.
Yeah.
Right?
All I had going for it.
The difference in those two is that the super high-def mocap faces in Heavy Rain didn't have a reason to look that good.
Yeah.
L.A. Noire worked their hyper-detailed faces into a gameplay mechanic, and it better served to connect the audience to the gameplay by having you judge just the minute little quirks of a person to determine whether or not they're telling the truth or lying or anything like that. Whereas in Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls, it's pointless.
It's just a way to just show off Quantic Dream's, like, admittedly pretty good face scanning, like, software. Like, okay, they got that. You know, it's Quantic Dream, right?
Yeah, Quantic Dream.
Okay, just making sure. I knew it was Quantic something. It's just a way for Quantic Dream to kind of show off their tech. And I mean, yeah, sure, good for them. They look pretty. But, like, that's kind of all it's got. I mean, pretty only, goes so far. I guess pretty pays the bills, but they're just so empty,
Yeah, that's part of the thing, is that, like, you remember he put out that thing Kara, which also Kara is pretty garbage as it stands, but, like, that was just a tech demo for facial scans, and you can take that individually and say, oh, it's a 15-minute or like a 7-minute thing, and okay, that's visually impressive, and then you're done with that.
Yeah.
Like, hey, look at this cool video, look at how hyper detailed it is, and then you're done with it.
Right, yeah.
But apply that to like a 20 to 30 hour video game, and it's the same idea, where it's just, oh, that looks pretty, and there's nothing there.
There's nothing fucking else that even matters. Like, there is nothing else in these games that, and like, because I think David Cage actually isn't a person, I think he's just like the pretentiousness of mankind poured into like a human-shaped vessel, and that's why all of his games just kind of like reek of the smell of his own farts. Like, because of that, there's no like real emotional depth behind these incredibly detailed like facial capture things going on. You like we said before 1,000 times with Beyond Two Souls, like, yeah, this is a beautiful emotional scene, but I have no reason to care. There is no purpose in this scene except for just suffering. Like, that's it.
It all goes back to, there's two things that I've said. I think I've said this numerous times in the podcast. I've made it pretty clear. I don't like cinematic trailers.
Oh yeah, I mean,
for games,
yeah.
I don't like them because it's cool, and you've made an announcement, and I'll be like, oh, that game looks interesting, and then I won't care until I can see a gameplay of it.
Right, yeah.
Because I want to see how it's going to play. The other thing I've said a few times is the idea that narrative and visuals in video games only exist to serve and enhance the gameplay.
Right.
By nature of the medium, because it's video games. Because it's a medium a storytelling medium like that, your gameplay and your should always come first.
Yeah.
when you're designing, whether it's a visual novel or a point-and-click adventure game, the visuals, the music, all of that stuff needs to further enhance your enjoyment of actually pushing the buttons. And Quantic Dream and David Cage's games I've never seen such a huge divide between pushing the buttons and the story.
Yeah, because, I mean, you don't really need to even push the buttons to advance the story. Like, yeah, you need to walk your character from point A to point B, I guess, but that... Otherwise, like I said, those QuickTime events, because fail states are a failure of the game design, or what the fuck ever it is, because of that, like, all those QuickTime events, no matter what you do, they're gonna end the same way at that point, right? So even the most basic thing of video games, which is you press a button, things happen, and there's a consequence, you know, like you live or die, like boiled down to the most simplistic thing, you know, there's a thing coming at Mega Man, you press a button or you don't, and he shoots his lemons, and, you know, he dies or he doesn't, like, that's it, like, it boils down to just that, right? So, yeah. Like, if you take that out of the video game, and nothing you do really changes, even, like, choice-based video games, like Mass Effect and shit. Yeah, we all know our choices don't really matter, unless, like, it's a really amazing game or something like that. But even, like, you just playing the game is, if you play it well, you live. If you play it poorly, you die. That's, like, the basic of video games. Even that doesn't matter in Quantic Dream games. Like, nothing changes.
It's what it is that, like, games like Mass Effect or something like say Deus Ex, for instance, which, yeah, you're given choices, and ultimately by the end of the game, you're not going to have, like, drastically different endings.
Right.
And we understand that,
yeah,
and we're okay with it, because there's a good game aside from that is fun and enjoyable to play, and so what if the story isn't good? I had a fun time getting there.
Right.
And there's usually enough variation that you can be like, oh, well, my shepherd did this, and my shepherd did that. You know, there's usually have, like, enough variation that you can still have fun picking certain things to hear different dialogue or to get different people or whatever. You know, and that all that does is serve to change your gameplay. Whether you pick path A or B depends on which area of the map you go to, or how do you approach this new problem. It's all ties back into gameplay. Whereas David Cage, the minute changes that happen in Heavy Rain or in Beyond Two Souls or in Indigo Prophecy,
yeah,
like, you're not enjoying it because you feel so completely distant from these characters.
I feel like the thing is that I think if nothing else about these games changed, but, like, the choices you make have, like, real, for real, like, changes that happened, like, there were tons and tons and thousands of different endings or whatever, right? Like, that would at least be cool, you know? So, like, at the end of Beyond Two Souls, basically, like, yeah, what's-her-face dies, but, like, nothing else really changes, and it still shows you the end of the world at the end of the game, right? Like,
yeah.
If Quantic Dream games were just, like, really insane choose-your-own-adventure games, like, that would at least be something, you know? That would at least still be, like, a weird hook to say, like, well, I did this, and so I unlocked an entirely different, like, plot section of the game that you couldn't get if you didn't do this. Like, if it was, like, a really detailed choose-your-own-adventure game, that would at least be something, because then you've got, like, a cool mechanic behind, like, you found this, and so you unlocked ending number 5 out of 400 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Like, David Cage has gone on record to saying, like, I have to find the exact quote, but, like, he said in an interview, like, don't play Heavy Rain twice.
Yeah.
And the reason is because you'll see past the curtain, and you'll see that nothing you do actually really changes a whole lot.
Yeah, exactly. And these are $60 video games, telling somebody don't play it twice. I'm sorry. I beg your pardon? don't play the game twice after I spent that much money on it? Absolutely not. Am I taking crazy pills? Like, your game is meant to be played many, many times, typically speaking, even if it's just for the enjoyment factor, and not even because, like, anything changes. Like, people replay Mega Man and shit like that, and nothing ever changes there, but it's still fun. So, like, basically, you're just saying your game isn't even enjoyable.
You and I have played, speaking of, we've been playing Persona 4, like, over and over again, and that's the most linear game out there. There's
changes.
only one path.
Nothing changes in that game. Everything stays the same, even with, like, you have dialogue options in that game, too, and all it will change is the response you get, like, the next line of dialogue can maybe change. Sometimes
it'll change the next line of dialogue, and then the cutscene will continue on as normal.
And sometimes it doesn't even do that.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter because the game is enjoyable.
And it's still fun to play, and it has good things going on for it, and it has emotional depth. And all of this stuff that David Cage games just don't have. Like, I don't know what David Cage is, but I'm positive it's not a people. You know?
It's like, so what he wants, and I mentioned, like, it's like Titanic in that, if you think about, like, you know, people tout, like, Titanic as one of the greatest love stories of all time, right?
It's all
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the thing, is, like, if you strip away, like, James Cameron did an amazing job combining visual, you know, practical and CGI, and it's a breathtaking movie, and I'm not going to deny that. But the story itself is not that great. I mean, and if it was not,
yeah,
it's the most generic, mediocre, straight line romance story. Like, you've seen it a million times, and the reason it sold so much is not because of that. Because what happens is that you see this movie that's productive quality is through the roof, and he's using new technology with old technology, and he's creating this exact world, and he's basing it off of research that he's done, and you see that, and it tricks your brain into thinking, well, if the production is really good, the writing also must be really good.
Must be that good, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what David Cage hopes will happen.
But
he thinks that if he makes this game look as visually impressive as possible, and he says, you have all these choices, and we're going to do something completely brand new with gameplay, and we're going to put the actors in the video game. He thinks that will mean his story will be good by default.
Right, and it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way.
Because the thing is that, like, Titanic, like, I've seen Titanic a few times because, like, confession, I actually kind of really like Titanic.
It's a good movie.
it's not ever, because, I mean, David Cage, James Cameron can't write a good movie that isn't Terminator 2 to save his life. Like, for sure, all of the plots of his movies are just kind of like, whatever. But, like, Titanic just kind of has, like, a charm to it, and that's the thing. Is, like, combined with the spectacle and, like, the really faithful reproduction of historical stuff, because, like, it's really crazy when you start getting into it. Like, they even changed, like, for the re-release, because, you know, they put it back in theaters a few years ago. For the re-release, they even changed the stars in the sky digitally to make them more, like, accurate, which is crazy to me. Like, the reproduction of the Titanic itself, and the deal is that you can tell James Cameron is, like, literally obsessed with the Titanic. Like, it was kind of almost like he made the movie to fund his, like, expeditions to go see the Titanic. Like, the actual one at the bottom of the ocean. Like,
yeah.
So, like, the actual shipwreck at the bottom of the ocean, which is insane. So, like, you get the idea that there's, like, a lot of passion behind it, even if the story is just kind of middling. And I don't really like James Cameron as a person that much. But, like, it is still just a really interesting spectacle. And it has, you know, a really beautiful sense of design, and like, the movie itself is really pretty. It's colorful, and kind of, you really feel like you're in the past compared to, like, the sequences that are actually in, like, present, which was, like, 20 years ago now, because we're old, oh my god.
Yeah.
And, like, so all of this comes together, and you get, like, a pretty good little spectacle movie, and I've seen it a lot, and I really like Titanic. David Cage's games have none of that. Like, they have no heart, they have no soul, they have no, like, sense of really understanding the subject matter. Like, David Cage's games are all set in America, but I don't think David Cage has actually ever been to America.
No,
except for E3.
Like, there are so many bits, like, in, like, Heavy Rain and and Beyond Two Souls, that is like, you've actually never been to a small American town, have you? Or you've never been to New York, have you?
Yeah, like, you really get the sense that David Cage has never actually been to the United States, ever, and he's just setting it there because he wants to make a movie the way people do, you know, in New York.
It's, like, and that's the, like, yeah, you're right, because, like, the idea is David Cage wants to make movies, right? Uh-huh. And, like, it's gonna be hard because, like, I don't really like doing comparisons, like, frequently, but for a guy like him who is clearly ripping off so many people, and there are so many people in the industry doing it better than, like, objectively doing it better than him,
yes,
that it's impossible to not. And the ultimate one is David Cage compared to Hideo Kojima, and we always joke that, like, Kojima wants to make movies, right?
Right, of course.
But Kojima also very clearly cares about the gameplay aspects of his games.
Yeah, I mean, he came up with the Psycho Mantis boss fight, yeah.
Yeah, he very clearly cares. Like, the difference is, like, both of them are very cinematic game directors, and they enjoy putting tons of, like, complicated and conspiratorial plots in their games. They also like doing unique things with gameplay. Now, the difference between the two is Hideo Kojima... the difference is that Hideo Kojima is good and David Cage is not. But the difference is that Kojima does gameplay mechanics that expand and enhance on, like, standard default things. Like, Metal Gear, like, original Metal Gear Solid stealth mechanics are pretty pretty basic. It's you hide behind cover, and enemies can't see you. Enemies have a cone of vision.
Yeah.
But he's also the one that included, hey, whose footprints are these?
Yeah, exactly.
Which, back in the PS1 era, that was mind-blowing, and it took so many players by surprise because they never would have expected that to be an actual thing.
Yeah.
There's so many little bits and pieces that enhance core gameplay mechanics that we've all gotten used to that are why these games are so good and why they're so important and relevant and, like, significant in the history of video games. David Cage does, like, changes gameplay for the sake of changing gameplay.
Right.
Like, in order to move in Heavy Rain, you have to hold down a button to make your character walk, and then use the analog stick. Why? For no reason.
That's so dumb. It's like... Why fix them... Why fix, finger quotes, the most unbroken of game concepts? Like, moving your character forward with the analog stick is the most basic of basic video game making. And the idea that needs to be tweaked is absurd. Like, it makes no sense. It's just there to, I don't know, show that David Cage doesn't know how video games work.
It's like when you were at my house, like, a few weeks ago, and we were playing Catwoman, and all we could say is, why the hell is R1 jump?
It's so true. Why? Like, it's the same idea.
Yeah, it's the same concept where it's just, like, there's no reason to change these mechanics in any way. They have worked fine for literally decades by the time Heavy Rain came out.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason to mess with it. All you're doing is making it harder for people to enjoy your story.
Which is not good to even begin with, because the plot of Heavy Rain is almost incomprehensible, and the idea of the detective being the killer is stupid.
It's contradictory.
Yes!
Because you'll get parts where the detective is like, I gotta catch this killer, and he's, like, by himself.
Right. If he was the killer, I don't understand. Like, if he was, why would he be talking like that to himself? Does he have, like, a split personality or something? Because God knows David Cage doesn't know how to write, you know, anybody with any kind of actual mental illness.
Now there is one thing in that the only interesting character in that game, in Heavy Rain, because we'll talk about Heavy Rain for a little bit. We'll do that. The only interesting character in Heavy Rain is FBI agent Norman Jayden.
Oh, it's because he's the worst.
Because he's got that, he's a sleaze bag, He's got that Brooklyn accent, and he's got the cool, detective vision headset thingy.
But it's
which
so
is like
lame too.
It's a cool idea, but the game, the story includes a thing where it's like, oh, if he uses it too much, then it messes with his brain and he starts hallucinating it. So you're punishing players for using your cool thing. It would be like if you played Deus Ex and it's like, if you use your augs, you'll die. And whenever you use your cloaking, your health goes down.
Yeah, exactly. But to me, even the one interesting character in Heavy Rain is okay, so there's that part, and I can't remember exactly when it is, but it shows him sitting alone at a desk in an empty office, swatting at the air, he's trying to catch a fly, but it's because, you're getting, an outsider's perspective of him using his VR thing. Do not ever do that, because it just makes him look like he's having a seizure. It is the stupidest fucking... And when I first saw it, I was like, there's no way. I thought for a minute that, maybe the graphics had fucked up, and it just wasn't showing you the VR. Because, I was like, there's no way David Cage would make such a simple, basic mistake of showing some doofus using his VR thing without actually showing the VR thing. So it literally looks like he's just kind of having an attack,
Well, what it is it's, okay, so you get him, and he's sitting in his chair, and he's just he's bored, whatever, he's gonna turn the thing. He turns in the VR thing, and he's a ball appears in his hand, and you're thinking, oh, that's cool, he's got this cool VR tech that he can just bounce a ball off a wall for when he's bored. That's kind of neat. And then it shows the outside perspective, and it's oh, it's actually totally lame.
It's actually
because he looks
lame.
like a toolbox.
He looks like a toolbox, and it just reminds you that, this is what our VR future is going to look like. One day we're going to be wearing lame glasses and doing this, and we're just going to be slapping at the air all the time. And frankly, I don't like David Cage telling me that the future is going to be really dumb. I don't appreciate it.
It's whenever you, if you, I don't know if you've, playing the VR headsets that are coming out, where it's oh man, I'm doing, I'm sword fighting. Yeah. And then it shows the camera outside, and it's just some douchebag in a helmet, and he's, swatting his arms around like an idiot. But to you, it looks really cool.
Yeah. And to nobody else. And to nobody else does it look cool.
In this Heavy Rain instance, David Cage deliberately chose to show Norman Jayden looking like an asshole.
Because...
when he could have just kept him in the cool VR thing.
He could have just kept him... Because, at that point, at that moment, you're all of these characters are the lamest douchebags ever. Either they are completely bland, nothing characters, or they're just kind of assholes. I just don't understand, what David Cage thinks characters do in stories. Does David Cage understand that characters are supposed to have, real development and, emotional arcs and, be kind of relatable, at all?
David Cage likes putting his characters in, very hostile situations, but he doesn't do the research as to how a person would actually interact in a situation like this.
Yeah.
He wants to put Ethan, crawling across broken glass.
Right.
Crawling through a vent to get to broken glass to rescue his son. But Ethan is, an architect. And I understand, I would hope that my father would crawl through broken glass to rescue me.
Right.
But, all we've seen of Ethan is that he's a weenie. And so, you need to have some sort of, heroic thing about him to be okay, yeah, I could see this guy, risking his life like this and not cowering out, but, all we've seen of Ethan is that he's kind of a wimp, and to have him do that in a gameplay thing is just well, I don't really care. because it's not believable in this way.
It was like David Cage trying to do John McClane walking across broken glass, but without the cool factor of it being John McClane.
Yeah, the difference there is that John McClane is a cop who is a physically fit individual.
And a badass.
And he's like, he's a cool... We see him being a cool dude. We don't see Ethan being a cool dude. We just see him being, like, a victim the whole time.
And he just kind of mopes the whole time and is like, well, I guess I'm the origami killer. Like...
When she shoots, that's set up in the foot. He's like, I keep having these blackouts and hallucinations. Oh, they're nothing.
They're just nothing. Okay, it's been a while. Do we ever get an explanation for the blackout?
No, he just drops that halfway through.
Oh my god.
It's just like, no, it's nothing. It's not, nope.
God. Oh my god, why? Okay. Well, I mean, I cannot stand David Cage. I think the closest I've ever come to being like, I think I'm done with video games forever, is after I did not play Beyond Two Souls, because fuck you, I refuse to give him money, and go fuck yourself if you tell me on Twitter I need to actually play it, because it's just a movie, kill yourself.
Yeah.
But like, I did not play it, but I watched it, and I was like, this is fucking stupid. And then I went and looked up the sales figures, and it was like over 2 million units sold for a really, like, bad game. And, like, that is probably the closest I've ever come to being like, you know what, I think I'm gonna take up painting again. I think I'm gonna sell all of these consoles, and, I'm gonna take up painting again and actually do something worthwhile with my life. Because in that moment, I was just like, there's no, and of course I got over it. But, it was like an existential crisis for me, because, like, that's how bad I think Beyond Two Souls is. And I have a special place of hate in my heart for Beyond Two Souls, reserved only for it, the Ghost in the Shell movie, and the World War Z movie. Those are the three things I hate the most in the entire universe, media-wise. For all the same reasons, which was, like, you had a neat idea and you fucked it up! And they made a ton of money, and it means we'll never get a good version of, like, this idea. And in this case, it means Ellen Page being in video games. But, like...
Which she will probably forever regret getting mad at The Last of Us. Right?
Right. I just, like... I cannot believe that many people bought that game. Like... After Heavy Rain was so bad and Indigo Prophecy was so bad, people were still like, well, this looks pretty, I'll buy it.
It's so staggering to me, because I think out of the three of them, I think Beyond Two Souls is the worst one.
Oh, it's the worst. It is absolutely, like, because in the beginning, like, Indigo Prophecy has a cool start. I know that, like, everybody makes fun of it, but the beginning of Indigo Prophecy is kind of a neat idea, where it's like, I committed a murder, maybe, and, like and it's like that weird cult
Indigo Prophecy goes to some fucking bizarre places, and it's a convoluted mess, but I burst out laughing watching it.
Yes!
Which means that I enjoyed it more than the other two.
And, like, Heavy Rain is just like it's kind of like it's like a murder mystery in a video game, and I actually did expect Heavy Rain to take some, like, weird, like, supernatural turn, because that's, like, what David Cage does, and it didn't, and I was actually kind of surprised about that.
Yeah.
But it's not saying it's good, it's just, like, of three bad things, these two are slightly less bad than the worst, which is definitely Beyond Two Souls.
Yeah.
Which is an abomination of a game. Like, I don't care how pretty it is, it's just bad. It's
like, everything about it, besides the acting, which is due entirely in part to the fact that they got Willem fucking Dafoe to act.
But, like,
that man is incredible.
Even his acting is just kind of, like, okay, because, like, the script and the plot he was given is just garbage. You know? Like, a good actor can only do so much with a script, like, with a bad script, you know what I mean? A really bad script. Because everything about Beyond Two Souls is completely and totally incoherent. The plot makes no sense, even if you do play it in order. And the fact that it's played out of order, but the order is really stupid. Like, I guess he was trying to pull a Quentin Tarantino, but the deal with Quentin Tarantino is that you don't show it on a fucking timeline, you just make your viewers, like, figure it out, you know?
It's, okay, and this goes back to the point I made at the very beginning, which is David Cage does things that are quote-unquote artistic, which is Quentin Tarantino films, or Memento, are movies that are told out of sequential order. There's a reason for that. And the reason that Pulp Fiction is out of order is because you keep getting shown these bizarre events, and then it's up to you to piece them together, and by the very end, you see that it all ties together perfectly.
Right.
And you go, oh, holy crap, I get it now.
Exactly.
David Cage took that same approach, but didn't have any payoff. It's just cut up into pieces and scattered around, and there's no coherency, there's no order of events that do, like, you don't have that eureka moment where you're like, oh, it all makes sense now. It's just, wait, I guess we're doing her as a little girl now.
Like, again, like you said, there's no payoff. There's no moment where, like, to have it told out of sequence, suddenly it all makes sense. Like, this is why, because it was building up to this moment to show you a thing, right? Like, the whole idea of these movies that are told out of sequence being told out of sequence is because they're giving you the plot pieces, and that plot pieces are all building up to one big moment, and it makes you go, oh, that's how all of these, like, weird rando things are connected, right? There's no moment like that in Beyond Two Souls. There is no instance where you think, like, oh, so that's why they told me about, you know, her hurting some kid in a snowball fight before the fucking Africa mission. I don't know if that's the order. Fuck you.
Whatever, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. None of the order doesn't matter. So why not just tell it in sequence?
There's no, oh, she has memory problems.
Yeah.
And so she remembers things out of order, which would also tie together. You'd be like, okay, well, yeah, it makes sense that these things are scattered because she herself is having difficulty putting things in order.
Right.
No, it's an outside thing where we're just given random parts of her life, and we're not given any reason to care because they're told so far out of order that we build up to one thing, and then we cut away to something else, and we don't come back to that first thing forever.
And it's so weird because, like, the CIA show up to take this girl to make her be a super soldier or what the fuck ever. Oh my god, I'm going blind just thinking about it. And she's like, I hate you, rando dude. And then, like, the next scene is them flirting. And it's like, well, okay, I guess all of that hate just kind of fizzled out. Fine. Whatever. So now you want to bone this guy who kind of, like, turned you into a super soldier. I guess that's fine. Whatever.
Oh, now she is a goth.
Now she's a goth. And
now she's homeless.
Oh,
I guess she murdered all those. It's like, it doesn't make sense. There's no payoff. There's no build up. There's no, like,
it's just
there's so many different plot threads that happen that what happens is that you cease to care because it's told so far out of order. Your brain goes, I'll never keep up with this.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stop trying.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's a ton. If it was, like, told out of sequence, but it was only, like, 6 little chunks that were, like, you start as a teenager, and then you play as a young girl, and then you play the part where she's homeless, and then you play the part where she's a teenager again, whatever, right? But it was, like, big, long sequences of that, you know? Maybe then that would make sense. Because then it's kind of like, oh, well, we're jumping back and forth in her life to show how she ended up here. I don't know, fuck it, whatever. But at least it would be, like, longer sequences of you doing one thing, so it would feel at least a little bit cohesive and less piecemeal. But no, these are sequences that are, like, an hour long a piece, maybe, and there's, like, 40 of them!
And then they keep showing the timeline, and the timeline gets so full up that, like, at first you're like, okay, well, at least I can follow this and it'll make sense. But by the end of it, you're like, I don't understand what the sequence of events was.
I don't know where this line, like, what line is pointing to where, because there's so much information crammed on the shitty, minimal fucking timeline that, like, you don't know when anything's fucking happening. Oh my god. Like, none of it makes any sense. it's not that the story is hard to understand, because it's mostly just stupid. It's just that the decision to telling it out of order is what I do not understand. He just wanted to sound like an auteur, and it just makes him look like a jackass, and it sold over 2 million copies. Fuck.
It's just like... We're not given any reason to care about the sequence of events. We're not even given a reason to care about Jodie herself.
Oh, that's her name.
Because it's told so infrequently and so out of order. We're not given any build up to what, like, we'll cut to her being homeless. And like, okay, well, she's homeless now. Well, we didn't see what led to that.
Yeah.
So why do we care? Why would we care about this situation where we didn't see the part where she had, you know, a nice cushy life, and then event happened, and now she's homeless?
Yeah.
Did she break out? Did the facility shut down? We were given so many questions about it that we aren't focused on that, so we don't care.
It's like... It's even hard to tell what Jodie's personality even is. Like, she kind of just doesn't have one. She's just kind of there to suffer, I guess, because, like, she does not seem to have any personality that's really nailed down, because we never spend any time with her as one version of herself long enough to get an idea of, like, who she is. Like, one minute she's being a sad little kid, and then the next she's some petulant teenager, and then in the next she's, you know, homeless and mopey. I guess her single defining character trait is that her life sucks and she's sad all the time. Like, she seems to have no personality beyond, I'm sad, I feel bad for me. Like,
beyond being petulant and angry at authority, like, that's all she really is.
It's just sad. And it's like, there's no... She just mopes around for an entire game. And her moping just kind of solves things, I guess.
And it's like, the only time in the entire game where things actually seem to go right for her is when she's hanging out with the hot Native American guys.
Yeah, why not hang out? Why not keep living with the hot Native American guy? I don't get it.
And then, of course, David Cage has to wave his dick around and summon racist ghosts. Because it's not a David Cage game without racism.
Oh my god, so much, too. It's crazy. Like, yeah, let's have this rando white girl walk out of the desert and solve this Native American's family. That's not weird at all. That's not, like, you know, your standard white savior. I saw this movie. It was called Dances with Wolves. It came out 30 years ago, and it wasn't that good of an idea then. You know? Like,
and then she has to go to the racist underwater Chinese rapture.
Oh my god. And, like, at that point, you realize this game is almost like a parody of itself. Because, like, at first it was like, this is the story of, like, a girl who's saddled with this horrible responsibility of these incredible supernatural powers. And you're like, and it's like she's trying to exist in a world, like a normal universe, where she is just like a strange girl, and the government wants to do experiments on her, and she can never be normal, and, you know, she walks around out in the desert and makes out with hot Native American guys and all this stuff, and you're like, okay, cool, I guess. Like, you might even still, if you are somehow still on board with this fucking shit show, okay? And then we get to the fucking Chinese rapture, and at that point, it turns into, like, a goddamn James Bond movie out of nowhere, and a really bad James Bond movie. Like, out of nowhere, you are suddenly like, oh, underwater Chinese facility, excuse me? I was just having a snowball fight.
There's no build, like everything else in the game, there's no
movie.
build
You can
up.
call it a movie.
I almost said movie, I almost did. There's no build up to that at all. There's zero build up. And, like, you can be like, okay, well, she has a ghost, so I kind of accept the giant Native American ghosts.
Right.
Okay, fine. Like, okay, she's in a top secret military base where they have, like, a portal to the ghost land. Okay, well, yeah, that's also tied to ghosts.
Right.
underwater Chinese military base
is not connected to ghosts at all. There's nothing ghosts there. Like, everything else was at least kind of ghost related, you know? Like, we were like, okay, so the facility is there to study ghosts, and the CIA is there to make her use her ghost, and fuck it, what else? Like, when she's walking around in Native American town, like, you know, she's hanging out with, like, racist ghosts, and like, she goes to see her mom in the kind of offensive mental health facility, and that has to do with ghosts too. And then we're in China, and that's not ghosts at all. There's no ghosts here. Where are my fucking ghosts? That was the one thing that was like keeping this game. It was ghosts were the glue that held Beyond Two Souls together. And as soon as you took the ghosts away, it makes no goddamn sense.
It would be like if you were playing like, I don't know, like Phoenix Wright. And it's like, in the last case of Phoenix Wright, fucking Godzilla shows up. You would be like, what?
Honestly, it's Phoenix Wright. I probably wouldn't be that surprised and be like, I guess we're defending Godzilla now. But
well, listen, if we had to cross-examine Godzilla, I mean, that'd be fucking awesome. But you'd still be like, what? You wouldn't be like blown away at like how like shocking of a twist that is. You would go, what?
Wait,
that doesn't make any sense.
Godzilla was on the other side of the planet. He couldn't possibly have committed the murder.
and the difference between that is that the Phoenix Wright games have good writing, and so we're willing to more give them the benefit of the doubt if they do something dumb like that. Whereas David Cage has burned through literally every bit of, like, goodwill he has.
And yet Detroit is still gonna sell like gangbusters, probably.
And, like, he's somehow he's managed to make 4 games now, and he's working on his 5th, and all of them have the exact same problems, in that they're way too complicated, that no one cares about the characters, and he's just... it's boring, and he keeps trying to do things with gameplay that are not entertaining because the core mechanics are not fun to do.
Yeah, like, QuickTime events stopped being cool, like, 6 years ago. I can't think of a modern game. No, Tomb Raider made me do QuickTime events, but that was a game that came out a few years ago. Like, I can't think of a modern game that, like, forced it does, because everybody kind of came together and realized collectively, alright, QuickTime events suck.
Yeah, the era of QuickTime events is done with.
Thank fucking God.
Yeah, thank God for that. But I guess not, because you know Detroit is just going to be nothing but QuickTime events.
I don't understand. Can we please... Hasn't Detroit suffered enough? You know? Like, I was there a few weeks ago. I saw it with my own 2 eyes. In my soul, I knew, like, this is a city that's been through a lot, man. You know, like the crash of the auto industry, douchebag politicians, you didn't get your RoboCop statue. Like, you guys have been through a lot. The city has truly suffered. And still, they have to suffer the indignity of a David Cage game. How dare you, sir? That city has gone through enough as it is, and you subject them to one of your shitty, not even video games, just a bad movie where you press a button every now and then? I hate you. I hate you.
Detroit is going to be, I think, is going to top Beyond Two Souls, and that's because Beyond Two Souls had, like, an interesting thing where it was a girl possessed by her ghost brother, and, like, that's like, okay, if this were in the hands of a competent director,
it might be
I would be kind of interested in this.
It could be a cool concept. Your brother died, you've got it, you know, your ghost, you're still, like, twins and sibling relationships. You could write it correctly, because, like, the bone is there. It's like, you know, do the bonds of siblinghood end if one of them dies? You know? Because, like, everybody always says that twins are more closely connected than anybody on Earth. Yeah. Like, so, like, there's an idea there. There's the ghost. Jesus Christ. The ghost of an idea.
And also Willem Dafoe is there.
And Willem Dafoe is there. And Ellen Page is there. And they're both good actors. There's a nice concept there somewhere. It's just that David Cage is incompetent. Detroit has none of that.
The problem with Detroit is that David Cage is, again, he thinks he's being artistic by asking, oh, but can a robot have a soul? And is artificial life real life? And it's like, oh, you mean like literally everything that has involved robots for 30 years?
Yeah, Ghost in the Shell already answered that question. They did it with a whole lot more nuance than Detroit ever will.
And you know what else did that in Detroit?
Was it
Deus
Ex? Yeah.
Deus Ex did the exact same thing that Detroit is doing, but better. Because it was stylish and cool and fun to play, and Adam Jensen is a better character than all of David Cage's characters combined.
And Adam Jensen is kind of like a cardboard cutout of like a cyberpunk movie hero. Like I love Adam Jensen, and it's mostly because I think he's hot as hell, and because I think Elias Tufexis, or however the fuck you say his name, is a cool guy.
I think it's Elias Touffet. He's French.
I don't know how to fucking look. I took 4 years of French. Don't expect me to know how to speak French words. Shut up, Ben. He's a cool dude is the point I'm trying to make here. Like, Adam Jensen is not that nuanced. Like, he's a cool guy for sure, but like it doesn't go a lot deeper than that.
No, it really doesn't. But like
even then,
like he's about as like, and I've said this before, like, he's about as cool as John Wick, and John Wick is a really cool guy. And like, but because he's cool, and you do get little bits of like personality beyond just being like, you know, the serious, snarky, protagonist man.
Right.
You occasionally get little bits of like dialogue that are like, oh, there's some nuance. There's a handful of nuance in there.
Yeah,
and that's enough to get you going through this cool, you know, artistic stealth game.
Right.
Whereas none of David Cage's characters have that. They're all bland and boring and
sad.
Yeah. The ultimate thing is that there's not a single one that I actually care about, which is even worse than like hating a character. So like, I can have fun hating a character.
Oh, absolutely, all day long, buddy. We've talked about how much we hate Ion in Tales of Abyss to know that hating a character is a lot of fucking fun. But I don't even hate the characters in any of David Cage's games. I just kind of hate the games they're stuck in. I feel nothing for any of these characters. I don't even know what Willem Dafoe's character's name in Beyond Two Souls is.
Yeah. I don't even know what the girl's name in Beyond, or Heavy Rain is. I can't even remember.
It doesn't.
It's like Meredith?
Madison?
Like Margaret? Madison!
Is it Madison?
It is Madison, yeah.
Fuck yeah, I got it. It doesn't fucking matter.
It doesn't matter, because no one cares.
She's a cardboard cutout character who's there to, like, fuck the most pathetic man in the world. That's kind of like literally all she exists for. And to be part of like all of David Cage's really, really creepy sexual assault sequences that he keeps putting
that
in
are
more
in
and more
every game.
And there's like 7 in Beyond Two Souls.
Yeah.
So like I can only imagine how many Detroit is gonna have, especially because like he's got androids, which means he can dehumanize this poor woman. So like we can totally show a bunch of horrible shit happening to like ladies in this game because they're not really people, even though that's the whole point he's trying to make, is that they are people. Like if Detroit has less than like 10 creepy sexual assault sequences, I'll be shocked.
Well, like, it's David Cage's. I actually have a note about this.
Oh boy.
Is that like David Cage loves to have near rape scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And you know the reason he puts them in is because they're A, titillating, and B, he thinks they'll be controversial and people will talk about them. Which I guess he's right, because we are talking about it.
But not because they're controversial, but because they're super ham-handed.
It's such a blatant... And like, I'm tempted to not get into it because it's Persona 5 spoilers.
Oh boy.
So skip like a few minutes. But like Persona 5's like at least the first part of it you see. Like I know we talked about like how it keeps happening. But like the first bit with Kamoshida is handled pretty surprisingly well.
Shockingly well. Yeah, there's fallout.
Like not perfect.
Not perfect.
Not perfect, but
they keep calling it harassment, and it's like,
yeah,
harassment
which
is a
I think they did.
thing.
Well, yeah, which I think they kept using that word because like they didn't want to go all like they didn't want to have them just say it.
But I mean, like, if it's gonna happen, you
know.
should probably just say it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's already rated M, for fuck's sake. Just say the word.
But
anyway.
like, the point is that like the fallout of it and the way they handled it and the way it affected the characters was better than I expected to be handled.
Absolutely.
Whereas David Cage does it, and it's like, it doesn't like. It's so like. It just exists for the sake of having a quote-unquote controversial scene.
Yeah, it's just there to be skeezy and to create some sort of false controversy. And like, the thing is that when the game came out, nobody was fucking talking about it. Like, nobody, because everybody could see that's what you were doing. Like, he added a truly absurd number of sequences where Jodie almost gets raped. For one game. Like, it's a little weird. And, like, okay, it's a lot weird. Not a little weird. It's
super
extremely weird. And, like, nobody talked about them. It didn't generate any controversy. It was just there to be like, oh, look at this fucked up thing that happens to women. I am French. I know the trials of women. Shut the fuck up, David Cage. You don't know anything. It is the most blatant attempt. It's the same shit we get all the time. It's like, well, sexual assault equals backstory, you know? Like, that's all
There's
it is.
a whole subset of tropes all about that.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
and it's like, by this point, all it is just something to cringe at. Not because the act itself is bad, but because it's just being pushed in as another way to, like, try to create false, create the most shallow form of, like, tragic backstory you can put in.
Exactly. It's the easiest version of
it's the
traumatic.
New Dead Parents.
It's the New Dead Parents, for sure. I mean, it's just oh, well, she was almost raped, you know? Like, try a little bit harder.
That in of itself is not... that in of itself is not shocking or controversial anymore.
No.
You have to... Nothing would change if it wasn't there.
Exactly. Like, the story would just... Everything that... Oh, fuck. I fucking hate him. I can't... This is not a conversation I even want to keep having because it's just... It is so blatant what he's doing. You know what I mean? Like, it's not even... I hate that I've even spent this much time acknowledging it because it's not out of any genuine, like, respect to the fact that women have to put up with this shit, you know? Like, it's not... Like, there's no care or no, like, acknowledgement that, like, yeah, if you're a girl, you can't walk around outside at night alone, because this fucking shit might happen to you. All of it is just, like, a way for David Cage to raise people's eyebrows. It has nothing to do with the fact that, like, he gives even the single slightest shit. You know? There is no nuance. And we keep going back to it. It is just there to make people go, oh, wow, he went there. Well, fuck off. Yeah, he went there because it's easy for him.
Yeah, exactly. It's like shock without any commentary.
Yeah, exactly. It's just there to...
It would be the same thing as if, like... It would be the same thing as if, like, you were watching, like, if, you know, Aiden made a guy's head explode.
Yeah.
And, like, it was super violent gore spewed out. And, oh, that was shocking. But, like, there's nothing to it.
Yeah, it's just there.
Like, there's no... It's just there to be shocking and, like... make people go, oh, he did that, oh my, but instead it's just, oh my god, he's doing this again
for like the 8th time. And like, that's how it is with literally everything in his shitty games. Like, that's the running theme with all of them, is like, all of this is just there to just be flashy and have no actual meaning or depth or anything. And I cannot wait And by that, I mean, God, I want to kill myself thinking about it. I can't wait for David Cage to try and be like, racism against white robots! Are you ready?
Oh my God. Like,
are you ready? Because that's what's gonna happen.
So...
I'm gonna bet you $20 right here on the podcast that he's gonna make, like, robots ride at the back of the fucking bus.
Oh, no, we've seen it! It's in the trailer! It's in the trailer! It shows a bus, and there's, like, a section for robots!
Oh my God. Oh, I want to die. I didn't even know that because I hate David Cage. I haven't even watched the fucking... I feel so dirty now!
Oh, no, it's gonna be 100% that. And, like...
Oh,
yeah. Detroit is going... Because we've seen how David Cage handles, like... supernatural thriller. Mm-hmm. We've seen how he handles murder mystery. We've seen how he handles, I don't know what you would call Beyond Two Souls, like sci-fi thriller, military thriller,
supernatural military thriller. Fuck it, it doesn't matter.
And we've seen how he handles those with the grace of a chainsaw. And on their own, those topics are not controversial. They're not like, you know, something you would, like, hush about. Mm-hmm. They're just storytelling things. I can't wait to see how he handles something that actually has social significance.
And actually still happens? Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking crazy. Listen, I want to bet money. I swear to God, if David Cage has actually been to Detroit on a fact-finding mission, I would be fucking shocked. I doubt that man has ever set foot once inside that city.
Oh, of course he hasn't.
For one, he's too rich and white, and he would never, ever go to a place like that, like, because he thinks he's better than it. He's some, like, rich, white French guy. Why would he ever go to Detroit, you know? Like... He has never set foot on a street in that city in his life. And he's still gonna try and make a game about it, you know? Like, that's the most egregious part of all of this shit, is that he'll probably throw some, like, gimme reference to the fucking Tigers or whatever, you know? Oh. Yeah, are you ready for fucking Tiger Stadium to be in a bad David Cage?
Oh my God, he's gonna show... No, he won't.
What?
Because it's not, like, showing, like, Comerica Park or Ford Field would it require him to actually care about Detroit.
Because,
you know, because, like, I'm gonna bring it up again because, again, it's a perfect comparison, but, like, Human Revolution, like, when they showed, what's his boss's name?
Seraph.
I always forget Adam's. David Seraph. And you go to David Saraph's office, and what has he got? He's got baseball bats, and he's got, like, you know, tigers and paraphernalia everywhere, and, like, that's, like, the most accurate depiction of exactly the kind of guy David Saraph is.
Like, you know exactly what kind of a dude he is immediately.
He would have this gorgeous, opulent, like, black and gold, you know, high-tech, the greatest, like, glass and, you know, shiny metal chrome, and then he would decorate it with ball paraphernalia, like jerseys and bats and, like, signed balls and, like, little plastic containers. Like, I know that guy because I've met him. And you know, and he's got the thing where, like, he's kind of graying.
Dad, dude.
Yeah, he's, like, graying, and he's like in his 40s, and he's still kind of like slightly younger. He's not quite, like, middle-aged yet, but he's towing the line. And it's like, yeah, I know exactly who that kind of guy is. And the fact that they've put this guy in here is like, I feel right at home now. Like, when I first played Human Revolution, I went up to David Saraph's office, I was just like, they nailed it. They absolutely crushed exactly the kind of guy this is.
Exactly. Like, there will be none of that in Human... Like, there will be
absolutely none of that.
They will probably have, like, baseballs, like, rando laying around, like, as, like, a decoration inside houses kind of thing. Like, the way Resident Evil 7 has, like, football memorabilia, but it's, like, generic football memorabilia. Like, it'll be like that. But it won't have any kind of, like, semblance of, like, of crazy sports fan memorabilia, you know? That you see in that is a more accurate depiction of what like Detroit sports fans look like. Like that won't be there at all.
Oh, exactly. It'll be because he's setting it so far in the future that he can afford to be completely removed from all of that, from what makes Detroit Detroit, and he can make his own Detroit.
Yeah, he's just basically going to make his own Detroit where it's like sleek and futuristic and probably full of white people because you know.
And like I don't know, maybe I'll have to rewatch the trailer to make sure, but like, yeah, Detroit's an old city. Super old. All these buildings are really, really, really old.
Yeah, I've been there. It's pretty fucking radical.
And like, he's not going to do that. And like, what made it cool about in Human Revolution is that you could still see the old buildings.
Yeah.
You know, there were new ones alongside it, and because the old buildings were also really dark, it also fit in well with the color palette and the aesthetic of the new Detroit. But David Cage is going to tear all of that down.
It's going to be nice and sleek
and he's
white.
going to make it nice, sleek future. Yeah.
Yeah, sleek, white, chrome, like bullshit, full of robots. So be like, look at this bustling French metropolis, you know. French.
Yeah, he's setting in Detroit because it's a French city.
Exactly.
Like he's not doing it because like he cares about the Detroit aesthetic or he cares about what Detroit means. Like he doesn't care about Motown.
No.
He cares about the fact that it's Detroit.
Yeah, he wants it to be Detroit, and he wants to be like, look, I have, you know, resuscitated this American town in my video game, you know, like...
Oh, the Motor City, it is the city of the future! Like, fuck off, you're not going to show the GM plant or the Ford plant in your goddamn video game, and you goddamn know it.
Like, everybody fucking knows it. There's not going to be a scrap of the actual Detroit anywhere in that fucking video game city.
Because that would require him to actually care.
And to go and do, like, research about, like, what American cities even look like. He has no idea. That would require him to actually go to a city full of black people and, like, not act like a racist dickhead for 5 minutes. You know? Like, that's it's
going to be so ham-handed.
It is going to be so ham-handed.
Oh, my God. He's going to... like, rip off, like, famous protests, like, footage from protests, and he's going to replace all the black people in them with white robots.
With white robots, for sure. Like, even the main focus, like, the main character of Detroit is like a white detective dude.
It's a
robot, right?
Yeah, the pretty white robot lady.
Yeah.
And, like, the white detective guy, and it's like... You're not being clever with your metaphor because your metaphor would still be a thing that happens.
Yeah.
You know? Like, your black people will still exist in the Detroit future.
Like, yeah. Like, they're still gonna live.
You're not being, like... You're not, like, creating an alien race where they're, you know... They're not the fucking... What are they then, Dr. Seuss? The Sneets or the
fucking Sneets?
The Sneetches? Yeah, the Sneetches. Like, you're not being subtle. Like, you're not being subtle like that. You're not creating, like, alien races or, like, the gold robots and the silver robots. Like,
right.
They're people.
They just look like people.
Black people are still going to exist in that universe. So you can't create a racism metaphor in a world where racism still exists.
Oh my God, it is gonna be the most ham-handed fucking thing in the entire universe, and I swear to God it's gonna sell like gangbusters, and then, finally, Ben, I will give up on video games.
We're gonna get the worst part about it is going to be the articles.
Oh my God, people just
David
jerking
Cage,
off furiously.
There's going to be two brands, and both of them are going to be jerking off, just whacking it all over the computer. One of them will be...
Sticky keyboards.
Will be David Cage's brilliant rap masterpiece creates subtle, like, implications about racism in our modern-day society.
Right.
The other will be David Cage is literally Hitler, and I will murder him if I ever see him.
It's gonna be great. So which one do you think Kotaku will do? Both?
Kotaku will do both at the same time.
By the same
It will be one article, and every other paragraph will be like, he's the visionary. He is the worst being to ever exist. It'll just alternate.
It'll just be that hacky shit. Oh my god, it's just gonna be.
And then it'll end
bad.
with "I didn't even play Detroit."
Oh, game, and then it'll be game of the year. Oh
yeah.
Oh, kill me now. I'm gonna give up video games. I'm giving up video games. I'm going back to painting, Ben. This is it. This is the end of the gorge.
Podcast is Detroit will come out and the podcast will end.
Exactly. As soon as I see the sales figures and it goes like over like 3 million, that's it. We're done. We're done. Shut the podcast down. Sell the recording equipment.
And then you just walk into the ocean.
Never to be seen again. Goodbye forever, world. Just be like, I'm going back to the earth. I can't do it. I can't do it, Ben. I can't take another cycle of David Cage actually making money. Like, oh god, all it is snooty game people who are desperate for video games to be considered art. They're desperate for it, even though it doesn't fucking matter in the long run. Like, these people are just clawing on their hands and knees for anything, any semblance of something that will make them say, see, my chosen hobby is respectable. Because, like, all these fucking nerds, their whole life, they've been told, like, video games are useless and whatever. So, like, all they want is something to say, like, this is art, you know? And, like, it doesn't fucking matter. But because of that, these people are going to get on their hands and knees and in the back alley scene in fucking Beyond Two Souls, they'll get on their hands and knees, they'll unzip David Cage's fly, and one after another, they'll give him the sloppiest, nastiest BJ in video games history.
Well, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
You know what? The podcast is over.
I gotta go.
No, I have a lot to say about video games are art. And we could fucking do a podcast about that, but I do want to get into it for a little bit, because I am fucking so sick to death
of the fucking argument?
Are video games art? The answer is yes.
But it doesn't even matter. Why are you so desperate?
The reason it's yes is because it is an artistic medium.
Yeah,
it is an entertainment medium, and by default, it's art. It's the same category as plays or paintings or comic books or movies or television or books or music. It's all in the same entertainment category, and all entertainment, by definition, is some form of artistic value.
Right.
Okay?
There you go.
The whole genre, it's art.
That's it.
The question is, what kind of art is it? And the answer to that is all kinds of art, because video games are so versatile.
Like, that's just what, oh god, like, video game, like, what kind of art is video games? They're video games. It doesn't need to go any deeper than that. You don't need to be like, well, video games are like movies, but you can do this and this, or video games are like music, but you can do this and this. You just need to say video games are art because they're video games. Like, that's it. Like what kind of art are video games? Video games!
Yeah, they're just... I've never understood, like, people clamor at, like, and I love these games, but, like, they clamor at Ico or Shadow of the Colossus or even fucking David Cage games, and they're like, look, video games can be art, because by their definition, art is anything that is, like, beautiful or, like, some sort of, like, metaphorical nature to it.
Or it's, like... plotting? I don't know. It's like they're, like, art video games to them are games that are just... I don't even know. If it doesn't have shooty bangs to them, it's not art. Yeah. But then they want to call fucking Bioshock art. And God, kill me now.
Right, it's like video game... Like, they say, like, video games will never be, like, on the same level, like, storytelling as, like, movies or books. And it's, like... Yeah, because you're comparing Call of Duty to fucking anything in the Criterion films.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, obviously, those two aren't comparable. But if you want to be like, oh, Iron Man is comparable to, like, you know,
Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah, like, that also doesn't work, because they're two very different things.
And even then, when people are like, well, video games will never be as good as fucking Citizen Kane or whatever everybody jerks off about, like, okay? Like, that's not, video games are not there. Video games don't serve the same kind of purpose that movies do, or that books do. They have their own, video games are there to fulfill an entertainment niche that didn't exist before the late 1970s or whenever video games first really happened. Like, they are their own thing. They don't need to be as good as movies. They don't need to be as good as books. They just need to be good as themselves. Like, a video game doesn't need to, like, try to be something like movies or whatever. It just needs to be good with the, like, criteria that people set down for the standard of good video games, which changes based on what kind of game you're playing, just like movies. Like,
yeah, it's the same old fucking adage of video games will never be as good as movies, but video games will never be as good as TV, but TV will never be as good as movies, but movies will never be as good as books, but books will never be as good. The backlog of pretension just keeps building up.
The pretension totem pole.
Yeah, you're judging things by things they can't actually be.
And they can never be, because just the nature of the way they work.
Like, no, like, video games, yeah, okay, fine, you can say, like, video games will never have stories as well written as movies or books. Which, fucking, whatever, that's fine. Video games can still tug at, like, emotional centers far more than a lot of books or movies can, because in partial to the way they're developed.
Exactly, like, they're made, like, video games can fulfill a function that other forms of media just can't. Video games can make you feel like you're right there. They can make you feel like you're that character. Movies and books are about telling you a story about somebody else. It's not about convincing you that you're that person. Like, that's what video games do really well, and it's something that no other medium in the world can do. Like, that is what makes video games so unique. They don't need to be as good as movies. They just need to be good in general. I keep saying it. It's like they don't have to measure up to whatever the best fucking movie is, you know? It doesn't need to be Moonlight. It doesn't need to be La La Land. They just need to actually be good and they have to play well. They have to have a good heart and soul. It doesn't matter if it's not as nuanced or whatever. They can still have good writing. Like, everybody knows video games can have good writing. You don't have to fucking even play them to know that, you know?
It's just like, all this does is it further drives home the fact that even despite all this, even given all the conventions that we can, David Cage still cannot produce good games.
David Cage still can't make a good fucking video game, and I doubt he could ever even make a good fucking movie to save his life.
No. Like,
he makes video games because they keep letting him.
Mm-hmm. He'll never be able to be a director of a movie. He'll never get to that point because no one will ever let him do that.
God
so he's stuck making terrible, overproduced games. And, like, I know Detroit's going to come out, and I know it won't be the last game with David Cage's fucking name on it.
Oh my god, that's the worst part. Like, that's the thing, is that David Cage keeps making video games because they keep selling and he keeps getting accolades, right? And, like, he knows, we all know, the whole world knows. Like, if David Cage, like, the reason David Cage hasn't gone off and made a movie like he so clearly desperately wants to make is that he knows if he made a movie, he'd be laughed out of the fucking room.
Yeah.
You know? Because, like, he knows with the way fucking video game critics are, still desperately clamoring for something to put up on a pedestal and say, this is art, you know? Video game critics are so desperate for that, to have something to make them feel like they have any sense of legitimacy whatsoever, when really it doesn't fucking matter, you know? Like, he knows that. He knows he's got a niche where people will say, like, David Cage is a video game auteur.
David Cage's games exist for a single purpose, and that is so that game journalists can show these to movie journalists and say, look, we can play too.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, why even try to compete? And that's why David Cage will always have a fucking presence in video games, despite the fact that he is the absolute 100% worst, is because, like, somebody will always be desperate to say, like, look, we're as good as movies, when it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's a game that you don't need to... It's a match you don't need to be in. You don't need to have that rivalry.
It's two completely different things.
It's a waste of time.
It's a waste of time. It's like, it's not comparing apples to oranges, it's comparing apples to thumbtacks.
Yeah.
It's two completely different things.
They're completely different storytelling mediums, and trying to be like the other is how you get David Cage games.
And also how you get really bad movie video games.
Yeah.
For sure. Like, that's how you get Assassin's Creed.
Yep.
Like,
that's how you get Prince of Persia.
Oh,
that's how you get all the Resident Evil movies.
Oh my god. Doom is actually not that bad, but it's really just because it's stupid. But, you know, like, even then, Doom is pretty bad, you know?
Yeah. The only two good movies based on video games that have ever existed are Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat.
And that's because they're both pretty dumb.
And that's because one has Raul Julia, and the other they just didn't care and just had as much fun as physically possible.
And had some pretty cool fight scenes, you know, and Christopher Lambert as the Japanese god of thunder. Yeah. Fuck.
I feel better.
I do feel better, though. It is a good way to kind of kill some time and talk about how much I fucking hate David. I really do hate him so much. I really do. I know it's pointless to hate somebody you'll never meet, but God help me if I ever did meet him, I'd be like, why? Why are you this?
I would honestly tell him that he has done terrible work to his face.
Oh yeah, for sure. It'd be like, you are a hack, and you don't even remotely deserve the money you've made off these games. Like, yeah, 100%. Like, fuck off. You know? What the fuck are you doing in my house? Leave. And I mean that, like, as, like, my actual home, like, as if David Cage is ever going to show up to rural Alabama, but, like, also in, like, the general house that is, like, the video game, like, universe, you know? Like, What the fuck are you doing in my house? You need to leave. You know? You don't belong here. You're a hack, and you don't know what you're doing. And, like, really, it makes no fucking sense that the detective in Heavy Rain is the origami killer. What the fuck? I think that's what I'd probably end up asking him. Like, I would try to say you're a hack, but it would come out as, who the fuck thought it was a good idea for the detective in Heavy Rain to be the origami killer? It makes no goddamn sense.
It's terrible.
It's horrible.
At the end of the day, all you can say is that he's terrible.
He's the worst. I think he might be the worst. I don't think there's anybody else, except for maybe the guy who makes Postal and is obviously trying too hard. But I don't even know that guy's name.
I think even then, like, he's not relevant anymore.
He's not relevant anymore. But
David Cage keeps popping up.
I really don't think there's anybody in video games I dislike more. I like Ubisoft as a whole, I hate. Like, nobody likes Ubisoft. But, like, as, like, a person, like, as a single entity, I think David Cage is probably the worst of all of them. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm trying to think of somebody else that could be as bad, and I'm just kind of coming up blank, you know?
Yeah, I can't think of anyone by name that I hate more.
I guess that asshole who made Too Human, but he's not relevant anymore either, so, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
What's his face who made Sean Murray? He might be worse, but probably not. Sean Murray is an asshole, though. Yeah, Sean Murray is an asshole. I don't think Sean Murray is a person either, though. Like, I see pictures of Sean Murray, and, like, his eyes are so dead that I'm almost certain he's a robot. You know? He's got those creepy, perfect teeth and, like, those really, really empty eyes. And I'm like, is the guy who made No Man's Sky a robot? That would actually explain a lot about No Man's Sky.
Is that why it's No Man's Sky? Because he's no man? He's a machine?
Yeah, exactly. Totally. That's why.
There we go. We figured it out.
Perfect. We solved the mystery of No Man's Sky while shit-talking David Cage.
Okay.
You feel better?
I think we're good.
We're good. Hell yeah.
I think we're good for now.
Right on.
Thanks to Vincent for use of our background music. Link to his work in the description. You can follow us on Twitter at thegorgepodcast. You can email us about David Cage at thegorgepodcast@gmail.com.
Are you?
We have a Tumblr.
If you email me or tweet at me and tell me that David Cage is good, I will actually come to your house and kill you. I'll actually find you somehow. I don't know how yet, but I'll figure it out. Anyways, keep going.
We also have a Tumblr that we don't use a whole lot, but we will use it more. thegorgepodcast.tumblr.com. Sarah, tell us about your other podcast.
Hey, I'm in another podcast. It's called Big Gay Nerds. It's an LGBT RPG live play podcast. Fuck yes, I got it. Where me and a bunch of other big gay nerds sit around and play various and sundry tabletop games. Right now they're doing wrestling. I'm not in that one, but you should go listen to it anyways because it's hilarious. Yeah, we're on SoundCloud at Big Gay Nerds. We're on Twitter at Big Gay Nerds, I think. Yeah, so just Google us. You'll find us. Yeah, right on. That's it.
Okay, that'll do it for us. Fuck David Cage.
Fuck David Cage. That is the most relevant one we have ever had. Ever. Like, most of the time when we do the fuck somebody sequence at the end of this thing, it's like, who in this is the worst possible? But this time it was really easy. It's just fuck David Cage.
It's super on point. It's the exact topic we've been talking about this whole time.
For an hour and a half, we just boiled it down perfectly. Yeah, fuck David Cage.
You can watch the first 10 seconds and then skip right to the end of this podcast.
Perfect. Fuck David Cage. Good night, everyone.
Good night.